Welcome to the Inside Scoop, a podcast about self-improvement and knowledge-seeking. Our aim is to explore a diverse range of topics and perform self-checks on whether we're being the best versions of ourselves every week. I'm your host, Marius Urbelis. Let's get started. So this time, I'm here in the studio, actually, with my co-host, Oskar. Hi there.
Hi there.
Maybe the sound quality is a bit different, isn't it?
We'll see.
We'll check. So, Oskar does not have internet anymore?
Yep.
Does he?
That's why I'm here today.
Yeah, it was like, oh, so you don't have internet anymore. How are we going to record a podcast? Like, that's weird. Anyway, tell me about it. What prompted this?
So basically, I wanted to see what happens if I just remove internet from my home. With so many temptations just to click away, like YouTube, just to scroll on Facebook, pretty much any of those websites you go to that are the most addictive, you can just scroll forever. And you always find something for yourself, and if you don't find something for yourself, you just keep scrolling, and you keep scrolling and scrolling. And I thought, the best thing I could probably do is just remove the temptation altogether. In terms of, if I wanted to go and watch a YouTube video now, I would first have to, all I'd have to do right now is call Melvin and ask him for the Wi-Fi password. But if I hope he wouldn't give it to me. But if I removed, and Melvin's my flatmate, if I was living by myself, I would just, remove the Wi-Fi router. So the next time I wanted to access internet in my home, I would either have to buy data, which I have to figure out how I'm going to stop myself from doing that as well, or order a new router, which would take time to come. So, and then the only thing you need to do is stop yourself from accessing the internet. So all of those things beyond that aren't even tempting you anymore because you don't see them. So Facebook can't try to steal your attention, or YouTube can't try to steal your attention because they're just not there anymore.
Yeah, it's even like the food delivery apps, because I think that's what was your number one example to stop yourself from eating too much. I'm
starting to theorize about it. I've had so many new theories that I wouldn't have if I didn't do the no internet detox, because some things you only see once you lose them. And my mind's going blank.
I see. I can also see this little notebook. Actually, 4 notebooks. Oh my god, dude.
Well, 2 notebooks. The other 2 are
notebooks. There's a lot of stuff written in here. Do you want to tell us more about what? What is this?
Oh, that's my. I don't have a camera on, but that's this one I'm holding right now is my diary, which I started quite a long time ago, and I've only gotten wrote a little bit in since I started it.
Do you feel like you're starting to write more in it now that you are not distracted by everything online?
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the best forms of entertainment right now.
Really?
I'm just sitting there, and without internet, I either go and read a book or write something. I have some stuff downloaded on my computer, like videos, but those are mostly educational, not like infotainment, but purely educational. And I do that sometimes as well, but it's less relaxing. Like with that stuff, you actually have to think. With reading a book, you want to think as well, so you're not just being fed a lot of things and just accepting them. But then when you're writing, it's more relaxing, and so I tend to do that, and then I can focus on, I can spend my time making dinner or whatever, just to fill in a little bit of time that I have left in the day.
True. Yeah, I've had an interesting thought in the past few days, after your detox prompted me to think more about it. I was playing a bit of Prison Architect, I was watching a movie, and the movie apparently happened to be about prisoners. It was the one where Joey Diaz was acting in it. I was like, what the hell? It's The Longest Yard, I think. It's a good movie. It's like about prisoners and football. But anyway, the theme of prison itself was prominent in my thinkings. And like, you know how people, prisoners, well, usually get very buff, or because why? Because like they don't really have much else to do out there, right? It's like you got to serve your time, and the best form of I don't know, improvement, entertainment, anything, right? It's like you just go and pump the iron because, the gym is there. I don't know, basketball courts. Well, it depends on, what sort of prison that is or whatever. Like, again, I'm not familiar with the systems out there, but from what I'm seeing is like, it's almost like a pattern. And also the peer pressure around yourself, right? Because like everyone else is sort of getting stronger, more fit, and they are posing a threat to you if you're not strong enough. So it's like, I was thinking about, what if it's as if I create myself a prison too? It's like, sure, internet detox works, but what if
I don't know if it works, maybe.
yeah, like, what if I did not like just cut the cable, right? But what if I just allocated an hour or 2 hours a day or whatever, and like came up with some very strict rules to like, as if introduce this prison mechanic into my own life, to like, that's it. In those 2 hours of the day, you can't, I don't know, you can't browse, you can't do this, can't do that, and you can do like things that aren't electronic or online or whatever, right? Like, I don't know, a call comes in, sure, take the call if it's something important, right? But like, try and do the things that I usually not tend to do, like reading a book or writing into a diary or noting stuff down on paper, for example, because I'm always online, right? I'm just always a click away. Yeah, and I thought this could actually be an interesting experiment. Like, I don't know how this would actually have to manifest itself. Like, how would I do it, right? But like, I don't know. So what are your thoughts just in general after
on
starting
that?
it?
I was gonna just comment on that
Okay.
first, because I think it would take a lot of willpower.
Oh yeah, but once you train it, dude.
Well,
Like,
that's what it seems like. But like, I mean, it's a thing you can try. But the whole point of removing Wi-Fi from my home was that I don't really have to use as much willpower, because those temptations aren't so close by. And that's the thing, like, if something's completely removed from your life, you have no access to it at all, it's never going to be a worry. So you have to think of it as a spectrum. It's like you can move something farther away from yourself. Maybe you can't remove it completely because we've all got access to the internet in some way in the first world. But you can certainly move it farther away from yourself. It's, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I remember us talking about it, right? Like, how people use up their energy by using the willpower to not engage in something, right? I think it was the cookies experiment. Like, you either eat the cookies or you just stare at them, or not have them at all. And people who haven't had them on the table in the first place, they actually performed the best, I believe. Which makes sense, right? There's no temptation in the first place, so you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it's going to be lingering at the back of your mind still somewhere, because you've used your phone for pretty much every day of your life. But imagine, after a while, it will be entering your mind less and less, because it's just not physically there. It's not visually there. The visual stimuli isn't there for you to see. Like, your phone's just lying on the table, you see your phone, and then that triggers a bunch of things in your brain, and now you want to check Facebook, now you want to check YouTube, when it's not there at all, or when you see it there, but you can't access the internet. Like, that just breaks off the entire chain of of thoughts that you might have otherwise, like should I check Facebook or have I checked Facebook too many times today, and that's expending energy that you could use in other ways. Now it's not a perfect system, like a decision going to making the decision itself to remove internet from your home and to not then the next day call up somebody to install on your router. That takes will in itself, but I think it takes a lot less will.
So you can actually spend it on different things, right?
Yeah, willpower. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe, if you get through the hard phase of fighting with your instincts to just grab the phone, right? Like, assuming we didn't remove the phone or internet, but we just gave ourselves 2 weeks of struggle. Obviously, maybe it impacts other stuff in terms of productivity, but like you're fighting with it, but at the same time you're learning to live together with it, right?
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, it's like you're not really gonna be running away from the internet for so long, right? I feel like it's a good starting point to what you're doing right now. But like I have a concern that what happens when you just, I don't know, run into a wall or something, like where you realize that
All right.
you have a job, and that like there is gonna be a point at which you're gonna say, that's it, screw it, I'm coming back to like. No? You sure?
No, I'm shaking my head. No, I don't know if I'm going to, like, it's currently a temporary experiment. It might be, it's going to run indefinitely. But essentially, once, library's open right now, because it's nice and quiet right now. And so I'll be spending most of my day there. And so I'll still have to control my temptation to access Facebook or YouTube and all of these things, but they're all useful in their own right, as we've discussed before, but we can talk about it again. But in terms of being at home, when I get back home after a long day at the library, or when I just wake up, I can't just I'm feeling shit, so I'm going to order myself food. Like, I can't do that. I would first have to call up somebody, order a new Wi-Fi router, because I imagine in the future I might trade my iPhone for some simpler phone that I can just take calls with, or I might set up
like some app blocking thing.
Yeah, an app blocking thing that is built into iPhone.
Oh, do they have such thing?
Yeah, it's called screen time.
Oh, right.
And then you could put a passcode on it, so I could have somebody put a passcode on it, or put a passcode on it myself. And just, we talked about the time encryption that I could do to it, so I'm not forever locked away from it, but basically I could set a password, encrypt it in such a way that it would take a long time to unencrypt it. And basically this would be a sort of certain buffer. So, like, in the moment, I can't just go and get the password. I would have to wait maybe like a day or a week or something like that to get the password if I want to change things, right?
But I have a concern about this again, man. It's like, I don't know. What about... Wouldn't you need those services?
Which services?
Well, it depends on what you're blocking.
Yeah, that would be broken, probably Facebook. I'll give myself like maybe an hour a day on Facebook, because you can do it in terms of how many hours a day.
Okay, so you can allow yourself some time a day.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I do find benefit in these things. Like, it's not obvious, but all of the information that we're just bombarded with every day. If you have the right goal in mind, if you're trying to figure out, for example, like me, the way we think, like psychologically, and how the brain works and stuff like that, when you see on Facebook all these interactions between people, when you scroll down into the comments on YouTube, you're processing all of that. We're on the same spectrum, and with computers, where we program them to as machine learning algorithms. Like we're the same thing basically, but they're more specialized. But when you have all this information coming in like we never had before, we're actually able to process that and make like very good decisions instinctively. It takes a lot more effort to write them down as rules and then write proofs for them, but you can figure out things instinctively and from them, and then you can get ideas in this hot state. So the hot state, when you're not making the best decisions, is like very good for creativity, because you're just going places in your mind. You don't have any boundaries. You're just foregoing. You're making random assumptions. You're foregoing any rules, and then what I do is I write these things down, because then you're not going to really remember them in a cold state. And a cold state is where you should be in a cold state when you're working. You can't really work or do any meaningful work unless you're an artist. Meaningful work like writing programs or stuff like that. If you're in a hot state, you have to be in a cold state because you have to make decisions that actually work. Because the ideas that you have in your hot state, they don't work if you put them down on paper and you try to program them. You have to take what's there once you have written it down. Once you're in a cold state, you take what's there and and figure out which parts of it actually make any sense. I don't know if this.
Interesting. Makes sense. Sort of. I don't know much about the hot and cold state. We had an episode on it, but like I never really researched it further.
So I don't know a ton about it at all, but basically, like it's the idea, as I described it, is basically in a hot state you don't make calculated decisions. You make decisions impulsively, emotionally, and then in a cold state you're more calculated. You don't experience so much emotion, and you don't do things impulsively. Instead, you take everything in very calmly, and you're very composed when you make decisions. So you make the right decisions.
So that's for creativity, you want to be in somewhere where you would not think with logic.
Yeah, you want to remove all the boundaries.
Okay.
You want to be able to make assumptions and then not check them, because in science, basically, scientific method is you make a guess, and you can make that guess an assumption to build things on top of that, make more guesses on top of that. But fundamentally, you can make a guess, an educated guess, and then you try to prove it wrong. And if you can't prove it wrong, and if enough people can't prove it wrong, then there's maybe something to it, right?
Okay.
But as I've said, you can make a guess and make that guess an assumption for more guesses. So you can say, I assume this is true, and now I'm gonna build on top of that, but maybe even more assumptions. And when you're in a hot state, you don't think, like, you don't try to. You might do, but you don't. You might do this less, where you try to disprove something, to make sure to try to figure out if it's right or not. You just make lots of assumptions, and then.
Yeah, and I mean, even for an artist, I would imagine, like, you don't want to question, why did I think that it's a good idea to draw a tree here, you know? It's like you don't calculate, like, where a tree should be in a composition. You just naturally flow and then do it, I guess. That's interesting, actually. And
you work intuitively mostly as well. Like in the cold state, when you're composed and stuff, you can follow rules or methods that you've learned. You work methodically. Sorry, you work methodically. When you're in your hot state, you mostly work with. You still have your basic intuitions about things that you've known for a very long time. Those are just pretty much assumptions that you can't get rid of when you're in your hot state. And you build on top of those things as well. But you don't, really follow methods or do things systematically, right?
Interesting. Do you think your hot state can be sparked by something easily. Like if you, for example, again coming back to the internet topic, right? You scroll Facebook, you're more likely to get into a hot state when you do that, right? Rather than just stay cold and composed. Is that
I would
true?
think so. Yeah. I think when you're relaxed generally as well. But the thing with the hot state is like it doesn't always produce anything useful, right? It probably rarely produces anything useful.
Sorry, which state? Cold or hot?
Hot.
Okay, right.
So you might produce creative ideas, like when you're really in the zone in a game, you act instinctively, but somehow you're on another level, like you're in a zone, and you're just making decisions. You don't understand them, but you're just making the right decisions somehow. That's basically your hot state. And also, if you've noticed, at least I'm in hot state right now, because I'm just making a lot of assumptions on the go.
Okay.
With everything I've said so far.
I mean, that's supposed to be the inside scoop, right? It's not like the scientific facts.
Yes, but I thought I'd just put that out right there, because I think when you start to recite things from books and you can't have a discussion where you explore ideas, because you can only talk about things that are tested and true, right?
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, if you're having a discussion and you want to have, in discussion, generally you want to produce new ideas, especially like if you're brainstorming, but to be interesting anyway, you have to just kind of let yourself go. And I would say I'm in a hot state right now.
That is actually mind-opening, eye-opening. Wow. Actually, because you know what? Like we've pretty much always tried to like distance ourselves from the fact that we're scientists. Like we're not scientists, right? Right now.
Well, not right now.
But you know what I mean. In a certain
sense.
It's like we don't. Yeah, sure. But like we don't know to 100% like everything that we talk about, right? Like
no,
it's just pretty much impossible to be.
Well, I don't think anybody does.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like I think I was always trying, and then on the podcast, for example, just to try and talk the truth, because like obviously, yeah, you should be talking the truth, right? But like,
well, you have to know whether you are or talking the truth or not.
Yeah,
that's very hard to know.
And I think that's an interesting idea that you're throwing out there about trying to brainstorm and just like think, not necessarily rationally, when trying to discover new things by having some sort of a discussion.
Yeah.
Obviously, having a disclaimer that like, hey, anything that's been said here is literally like just, stuff that's coming out, but like you might discover interesting things that way.
Yeah, well, the things that I was talking about so far are kind of like my own little theories.
Okay.
Built on some basic psychology. So like I'm pretty comfortable with saying that these things, there's something to them. But I wouldn't say, I would have to go and perform empirical experiments, tests, to say for certain that there is something to them.
Yeah.
Which I probably will in the future. But right now I'm just gonna, and I put the disclaimer out there, but,
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's right. Cool. So, like, we shouldn't limit ourselves. Because, like, these days, there's so many people who, like, look for the validity, like, I think it's the validity of your words. Like, who gives you the right to talk about this? Like, someone asks you, like, how could you, almost like, how dare you talk about this topic, like, when you're not an expert, right?
Yeah.
Be it... Well, like I don't want to get into like specific topics these days, but like anything sensitive too, right? It's like, well, I don't know who gives me the right to. I give myself a right because I am a thinking person. Everyone is thinking, right? Everyone has thoughts. So like, I'm not claiming that we should, go and implement the ideas proposed, but like, just the conversation can, help us out, because otherwise everyone gets so emotional and upset and like starts fighting over things, right? Without being able to just sit down and like present their own opinions, insights, views, anything, right? Like if I'm completely wrong, then I should understand the fact that anyone might be wrong, and I myself included might be wrong by saying certain things. So like, but if there's someone out there who you are having a debate with, for example, you shouldn't, I don't know, just think that, oh, their opinion is so wrong, thus I'm not going to even listen or consider their points and facts and everything. Yeah, it's just a complete tangent, but it's kind of frustrating about like how people aren't listening to each other these days. Well, like, yeah, obviously everyone somehow needs to understand that they might be wrong. That's the first thing.
No.
But like we shouldn't ban speech.
No.
Like we should just allow people to talk to a point where one of them comes to realization that, hey, maybe like there's a better way, or like there is actually a thing that stems from the whole debate that we just had. It's like new ideas are born this way, right? Well,
yeah, I mean, new ideas are born in discussion. And we talked about this before a little bit off the podcast, I think, about the consciousness symbiosis of the idea. You have a conversation with somebody, if you're actually trying to have it, properly doing it, not trying to prove somebody wrong against all odds. If you're just having a conversation, and what you want is to search for truth, not to prove a person wrong.
Okay.
This is pretty much what, like, if I'm not having a conversation with somebody where we're both trying to search for the answer, for the truth, or if our goal is not the same, which is ultimately what is the truth, I'm probably not going to bother to have a conversation with them, because I don't need to prove anybody wrong. I don't need to prove to anybody that what I'm saying is right either. Like, I don't care what you think, fundamentally. If you like what I'm saying, sure, just go along with it, have a conversation with me. If you don't, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, I've got so many things to do.
Oh, exactly.
I've got so many books to read. I've got so many podcasts to listen to. I got so much studying to do. Like, I don't have the time to convince you wrong.
That's true, actually. And people waste time by... yeah, wow. Some good thoughts out there.
And, like, you're probably more likely to convince somebody of your idea if you're not attacking them. And if you're not, like making it clear that you're trying to prove yourself right to them. If you just put it out there, they're more likely to believe you.
Yeah, so people get defensive and emotional and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, my idea is, my view of the world or whatever is being shaken, is being sort of attacked, and then they get defensive. Like, it's human nature for some reason.
But when they're in the comfort of their own room listening to a podcast, where they're not in the middle of the conversation, they're probably more likely, and this is again not empirically proven by me, and I haven't read the science on this, but they're probably more likely to accept, change their mind, because there's nobody sitting there judging them.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, that's true actually. Well, I think people should just be more open-minded, right? Something like that. More open-mindedness.
People should just be. Well, I don't know what
nicer
people should
to each
be.
other, right?
People can be doing whatever they want. I can tell them what I'm doing, as I've said.
Okay.
I'm in search of certain type of truth, and that is basically about how we think, how our brains operate, and that's what I want to know. So I don't take any bullshit. I won't just go and listen to somebody, for example, if they're trying to teach me about bias or something, in one of those heated topics that we talk about nowadays. I'm not going to read a book about my bias, because that's just going to be skewing reality for me. Like, everybody's reality is skewed by their character to some extent, but I'm trying to, like, get rid of that as much as I can, get as close to the truth as I can. And basically the only way to get closer to the truth is, one, well, there's a couple things. One, you have to pretty much never be satisfied with where you are right now. Like, you always have to be trying to prove what you think right now wrong. And the second thing is work like the more work you put in into trying to find the truth, the closer you are going to come to the truth. It's hard to say whether you can actually come to the truth about things, about social matters and about how the brain works, because it's yourself. It's like, it's pretty hard. And
Yeah.
and you know, you'll have your own biases and stuff. And so, like, to overcome those, you have to become pretty cold-blooded and calculated, and that's obviously very hard for humans.
Yeah, I like the first point. It's never settle. I think we even had an episode on this. Never settle. Don't think that what you currently know is the most that you can know. You know, it's like you are incorrect with most of your thoughts at any point of your life. It's like you learn throughout your life, obviously. You keep learning new stuff. And I might be incorrect right now, and I will be, and I am actually, according to my own point, but then it's like you just keep going, right? Keep going. Never settle. I think that's the theme of this podcast.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I think this whole podcast, as in like the whole Inside Scoop, right? Not necessarily this episode, but like from what I'm seeing, the whole idea is to just keep going, never settle, look for new things, right? Challenge the norm, challenge the stigma. I don't know, question everything, and wow, it's getting weird. Let's go. We got to get out of here. It's been nice talking to you.
Yeah.
Actually seeing you in person.
You as well.
Hopefully next week we're gonna have a video podcast. It's gonna be the Inside Scoop episode 38. I don't know if it is any special, or we can find why number 38 is special. We're actually starting to do video podcast.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's never a good time to start. The time to start is now. So like, even if we were to do a video podcast, I don't think we need to wait for episode 50 or something, right?
No.
Anyway, that's been us. Thank you, Oskar, for coming here to the studio.
Thank you, Marius, for having me.
And thanks to everyone who listened, and hopefully, guys, see you next week. Bye.